Hey, Lou Webb again, and welcome to round two of A Common Sense Patriot. Well, that's what I'm going to call this video thing anyway. Picking up where we left off about equal justice, I had mentioned that we first must identify and admit to the underlying problem before we can do anything about it. And then we need to understand how we got into this mess so we can address how to fix it. The underlying problem we discussed last time was that we, the people, do not trust our justice process anymore, or believe our laws and penalties for breaking them are applied equally. So how did we get here? Well, remember when I said in that first video that our legal system was originally designed for justice to be swift and severe, and that we had relatively few laws in comparison to today. Those two tenets of our founding principles have been undermined by our own government and judicial system over 2+ centuries now. Where justice was supposed to be swift, it is now bogged down in the miasma of an insane number of complicated laws, where there really needs to be much fewer and decidedly more simple ones. Why did that happen? Well, our Congress is made up of a high percentage of lawyers, as are state assemblies. Once elected as a legislator, or maybe a more appropriate term would be lawmaker, they figure they'd better do exactly that. So they write and propose laws unceasingly. In essence, they propagate their species, simply expanding the job opportunities for lawyers. The sheer number of laws on our federal and state books these days is overwhelming, and the complicated nature of those laws is staggering. Add to those two issues the fact that lawyers charge by the hour, and in concert, they guarantee that our justice system moves at a snail's pace, and as a result, costs way more than it should. And oh yeah, we don't enforce but a small fraction of the myriad laws anyway, and even then, seldom with any consistency. Okay, so here's how I see it. We, the people, must demand of our government that our so-called justice system actually become just and consistent for everyone. Why is that? Why is that essential? Everyone needs to know the rules and what to expect if they break them. Just like children who don't necessarily admit to liking rules, but virtually every child psychologist will tell you that children are actually comforted by having clearly defined boundaries, whether they like them or not. All humans are essentially the same, child and adult alike. If you're stumbling around in the dark near a cliff, it's very uncomfortable. Several years ago, I was trying to get off a mountain at night during a sheep hunt in some very chopped up country with dead batteries in my flashlight. A misstep while trying to negotiate that gnarly terrain would have ended at least 1,000 feet lower and taken just a few seconds to get there. Knowing where that cliff edge was would have made me feel way more secure. We simply can no longer tolerate inconsistency and inequality in how our laws are applied, or in the penalties for straying outside the lines, as it makes we the people uncomfortable. That justice inequality is part of what's tearing our nation apart. Bringing our justice system back into line is paramount. And in my opinion, the following guidelines would probably be a good start. 1. Eliminate the vast majority of the insane number of laws, and therefore crimes, we have on the books. This needs to be done both federally and at the state level. Remember the issues. Don't kill, hurt, or damage someone. Don't steal other people's stuff, which can be money, possessions, information, etc. And don't commit treason against the United States. Now, not all things fall under the above, like cheating, insider trading, for example, or traffic violations. But the vast majority of crime falls under one of those basic categories. And we can certainly have a few simple laws to address anything not covered by the core types of crime. So ask yourself, why must there be so many laws and so many types or degrees of crimes? Why so much complication in our legal system? Quoting here, since the start of 2000, Congress has created at least 452 new crimes. So the total number of federal crimes as of the end of 2007 exceeds 4,450. 91 of the 452 were contained in new laws that created 279 new crimes, and the remaining were contained in amendments to existing laws. That was as of 2007, folks, 13 years ago. So how many new laws and crimes have been added since then? 2, make the laws that survive the purge very simple. For example, if you rob someone in an alley, take their bicycle from the front yard, carjack their Chevy, burglarize their house, steal their money from a bank, steal their house via title fraud, con them out of their money in a phone scam, take their retirement in some kind of institutional theft, or acquire or possess something that isn't yours in any other way, why is a difference in how that was done important? Seriously, think about that for a minute. Why does how someone stole your stuff make any difference? Did you take someone else's stuff? Yes or no? It's the only question that needs to be answered. How it was taken just isn't important. Wouldn't the system work much more efficiently and quickly and at a much lower financial cost to we the people if the question to be answered in court, determined by a jury of peers, was simply whether someone illegally took someone else's stuff or not? Period. So in this case, one crime, theft, with the degree or penalty determined by the value of the theft. 3, so once the jury has decided innocent or guilty, why should a human being, a judge, be able to sentence another human being with any discretion as to the penalty they can assess? You get 3 to 5 with parole possible in 18 months. You get 10 to 20 years in prison. And you get 30 to life. That makes no sense to me. All humans, judges included, are influenced to one degree or another based upon their own set of beliefs, life experiences, prejudice, predispositions. We're all subject to that human nature. Look, we've all heard of the hanging judge, or that this judge is hell on drug charges or light on sex offenders, or this judge is really liberal, or that judge is really conservative, this judge is a Christian, that judge is an atheist. At the end of the day, all judges, because they are human beings, are swayed to some degree or another by their own set of beliefs. So it's impossible for them to be 100% impartial when dispensing penalties. Because of this fact, I suggest a sentencing schedule, or chart if you will, that has the crime listed with a corresponding penalty and there is no deviation. Why should one criminal get a heavier or lighter sentence for committing the same crime just because of the random draw of their judge or that particular judge's state of mind that day? Anyway, let's say the chart for theft might look something like this. $0 to $500 of value of theft, 90 days in jail. $500 to $2,500, 6 months in jail. $2,500 to $10,000, a year in jail. $10,000 to $20,000, 18 months in prison. $20,000 to $50,000, 3 years in prison, etc., etc. I'm sure you get the picture. There is a common crime, though, that I must address, and for a very specific reason. It is the crime that has been the catalyst for damn near every one of these volcanic eruptions of rioting and looting and insanity in our country. What is it? What's the single act that gets this crazy shit started 95% of the time? It's resisting arrest. It's not following the simple, clearly stated commands of a cop when he gives a suspect a command. Law enforcement officers have a legal right to detain you for what they believe is probable cause, and to give you certain commands to which you must comply. Put your hands where I can see them. Don't move. Take your hands out of your pockets. Get on your knees. Put your hands behind your head. Drop the gun. Think how many police-citizen encounters would have gone without incident if the suspect would have just done what the officer legally asked them to do. Common sense tells me that resisting arrest needs to be a harshly judged offense. And in this day and age of police dash and body cams, most of the time a fairly easy one to determine guilt or innocence. The rule should be that a law enforcement officer must give you a clear and direct command like, take your hands out of your pockets, or turn around and put your hands behind your head, exactly twice. And then you get tased or whacked with some other non-lethal weapon like a beanbag gun if you choose not to do what you're being told. Remember, that's your choice to risk the consequences of non-compliance. If you have a gun and the command is drop the gun, and you refuse to comply after 2 clear commands to do so, you get shot. We must be smart enough and honest enough as a society to place the blame for escalating these citizen police officer encounters where it belongs. And it belongs with the asshole that won't simply comply with a duly authorized law enforcement officer's legal command. And oh yeah, the penalty for being found guilty of resisting arrest should be 18 months in prison. No exceptions. Once people start to see their buddies doing hard time in prison for this, and understand that resisting arrest and non-compliance with the commands of a cop that he's not going to repeat 30 times is going to get them tased or shot. This daily occurrence will start to diminish if we do this. It's almost never the cop's fault that these things escalate. And we have to quit allowing BLM or the left or CNN or MSNBC or anyone else to drive the simply inaccurate narrative that it is. Anyway, enough on that. Going back to the simple sentencing chart I described earlier, the same can be done for crimes like a sex offense or an assault or a murder. And by the way, my above sentencing guidelines are just for an example, well, with the exception of the resisting arrest recommendation. I'm sure much smarter people than I could come up with a good penalty schedule for all crimes. The point being that this way the judge isn't allowed to let his or her personal opinion or belief system weigh on the severity or leniency of the penalty. And in addition, they would need no time to deliberate on it. As time is money, it would be less costly to us taxpayers. The judge simply takes the guilty or innocent verdict of the jury of peers and renders the penalty designated in the sentencing schedule based on the amount of the theft. Next case. Wouldn't that make the system more swift and less manipulated by lawyers and sentencing less of a personal opinion of a judge and therefore more trustworthy? And isn't trust in the justice system what we the people must have? And as Lady Justice is supposed to be blind, the above penalties should be just as swiftly and consistently enforced on celebrities and politicians and cops as they are on any other of we the people. Of course, there must be an appeal process, but there would need to be very stringent and simple and consistent requirements that would need to be met during the original trial to qualify for an appeal in the first place, and then during the appeal hearing itself. We couldn't have a situation where every conviction was appealed, but that would be easy enough to figure out. 4, as to juries, assign them in a completely random way, just like Powerball, for instance. Draw 14 random names, 7 women and 7 men from the voter registration rolls in the county of the alleged crime, with a man and a woman alternate, and that's your jury of 12. That way the lawyers aren't going to be able to manipulate the jury selection to stack the jury in one way or another and take days or weeks to do it. Will there be some juries that will be more predisposed one way or another? Maybe. But over time, it would all equal out by being completely random. Again, time is money, and justice is supposed to be swift. 12 randomly chosen folks for juries. 11 votes needed for a guilty or innocent verdict. Done. Okay, this is getting long again, so I'm just going to break this in 2 parts. So I'll post this part today and the finish tomorrow. Till then, this is Lou, a Common Sense Patriot. Godspeed.